Good evening, y'all. I am Doom, back at it again. And as usual, I am podcasting topics related to tourism and information in the state of Ecuador. Today I'm going to discuss a controversial topic. So for those who Good evening, I am Doom. And as usual, I am podcasting topics related to tourism and information in the state of Ecuador. Today I'm going to discuss a controversial topic that my subscribers have asked many times, and I will address it in a formal and informative fashion for my audience. So the topic that we're going to discuss today has to do with the legality of prostitution in the state of Ecuador. So for those people who have certain sensibilities or moral objections, feel free to just, go watch Kim Kardashian on YouTube if that's what you feel the need to do. So let's get into it. Just for historical purposes, the first regulations that when it came to prostitution were codified into law in the city of Quito in 1921. Subsequently, many municipalities in the country of Ecuador, started coming up with their own regulations, and a couple of years afterwards, the Ministry of Health kind of regulated the situation for the entire nation. So that's the historical context when it comes to prostitution. Prostitution is legal for all adults over the age of 18 who are citizens or legal residents. These activities take place in red light districts that are usually designated by the community where they're at. In the case of Quito, the city of Quito. In the case of Guayaquil, the city of Guayaquil. You kind of get the point. However, there are several options besides red light and regulated prostitution, and there are several different establishments, and I will discuss each one, the legality of said establishments. Okay, let's go by the list. Strip clubs. In theory, a strip club is designated as a adult entertainment. What does that mean? Well, exactly what it says. It's an area where you can see adult entertainment, strip clubs. These establishments are not licensed as brothels or red light districts. So in theory, sex shouldn't be taking place there. Most of these girls that are working in these establishments also, like I would say about 95% of them, engage in prostitution. Why, if they're only strip clubs? Well, unlike the US, for example, or even Western Europe, where there's a culture of tipping, here locals don't tip nothing. Or if they do, it's very rare. So what happens when you have extremely good-looking women and men who come for the shows? Well, you know, usually there's offers that are made, and there's financial, and there's a profit motive for these kinds of activities to take place. Most of these establishments who are strip clubs usually have like what they call a showroom. And, you know, as long as the house gets paid, whatever the fee for the showroom is, whatever happens inside that showroom, they don't really care. Is it legal? No, it's not legal because technically they're not a brothel. Is it enforceable? No. Considering how lazy some of the Ecuadorian functionaries and regulators are, I don't see them doing a raid after 6 p.m. It rarely ever happens. However, it can happen. So that's basically what goes on with strip clubs. A lot of the women are extremely beautiful, but you know, let's be clear, none of the girls are licensed, so there is a higher risk of basically them having an STI or an STD, because they're not required by law, because they're only entertainers. They're not required by law to have a monthly health checkup. Now, I'm going to get into something else called what locals here call spas. The concept of spas have different names and different models in Latin America. In Colombia, they're called casas because basically they rent a big house, you know, and they have girls there. In Argentina, I think they call it privados, because basically it's just girls working out of their own home. They actually live there. Here they call them spas. Why do they call them spas? Well, that's kind of the name they assign themselves. And also it's kind of like a cover for other activities that take place. So if the cops come in, they have the excuse of, oh, we were just engaging in a spa session, and obviously one thing led to another, and you know how that goes. It's a flimsy excuse, and you know, if you're unlucky enough to be raided once you know, when the shit hit the fan, then you know that excuse goes out the window. No one's that stupid. Everybody knows what happens here. You know, so this notion that they're a spa is just basically the euphemism they use for other activities that go on, and they do get shut down. And you know, there is news flashes in Ecuadorian television when this happens, and you know, you might get some embarrassment when some goofball goes in that got caught when they're in the middle of a raid. So it's not common, but it does happen. Streetwalkers, a favorite topic of mine. Most of the girls are not regulated, nor do they have health permits. So why are these ladies tolerated, you may ask? And that is a fine question. Law enforcement doesn't really take a dim view of prostitutes. They take a dim view of people who promote prostitution. So a cop can be in an area where there's no streetwalkers, they're never going to arrest the streetwalkers, even though legally they can. Basically, usually what they do is basically they go after the resources that support this illicit trade. Hotels here locally have two kinds of permits. You have the short time hotel permits, which are basically love motels, and basically you have like the Marriott hotels. They're both governed by different regulations, and they have to have different infrastructure because of sanitary reasons. And so a lot of, for example, here in Guayaquil, a lot of hotels, they're designated as hotels. They have a permit for hotels. But you know, if a hooker comes in with a John, they ain't gonna turn him away and say no. They need business. They need to pay workers. They need to pay whoever. So when there's a audit or a regulation, or basically there's a raid, they usually go after the infrastructure. They try to shut these hotel downs, or basically letting girls do their thing. They try to shut down web services, pimps, those kinds of things. They try to shut all that down. So you know, they kind of mitigate the trade. They kind of shut down the infrastructure of it, rather than go after the girls who do it. And now we have saved the best for last. Chongos. These are legitimate red light districts. All the girls are of legal age. They have monthly health checkups. And the ones who are foreigners need a worker's permits, otherwise you'll only see Ecuadorian nationals working there. Most of these establishments have what they like to call the 50-minute rule. Now here things work a little differently. I have heard some horror stories coming out of Colombia, where basically you get a knock on the door, which is extremely annoying if you're having sex with a prostitute. Here the girls kind of regulate themselves. If you're taking a little longer than usual, they'll tell the guy to hurry up. If they like you, they'll stay a little longer for the same price. So things are a lot more smoother than other places, Panama, Colombia, some of the places in Peru are also kind of a shit show in that regard. These establishments have a price range depending on the infrastructure of the place. They go from $12 to $25. Spas, they also have a range between $25 and $80 an hour. I'm sorry, they have a price between $40 and $80 an hour. What else can be said on that subject? Streetwalkers, I already mentioned that they're completely a black op operation. They're not regulated in any way, shape, or form. Why do humans still go to streetwalkers having so many legal options available? It's beyond my comprehension. You're risking being drugged. They definitely don't get a checkup. A lot of these women are either Colombian or Venezuelan. They just flew into, so there's a safety issue, there's a health issue. So that is all to say on the topic of prostitution. It is legal and it's regulated, and a word to the wise would be any kind of situation which is not regulated, spas, sometimes strip clubs, streetwalkers. It would be better to just kind of play it safe. Now, I get the point in many respects. Chongos, which are legal brothels, they basically have a simple setup, and in many aspects they have a simple infrastructure. So a lot of guys have certain standards. They want big rooms. They want to take their time with their girl, and they're willing to pay more. I get it, but if that's your thing, my advice would be to tell the girls at the chongos, listen, I like to take you to my room. A lot of them are not open to that because basically they're used to short time money. After they're done with you, from 15 to 20 minutes, they go back out and they get somebody else. But you make them an offer and they'll accept it, or they'll make a counter offer. It is a business after all. They're trading their sexual services, and they need capital. It's a business after all. So anyway, that's all for tonight. Doom out.